Borrowing books made easy. We deliver books to your doorstep. Sign up now at mybookshelf.com.pk.
Hi guys, it's that time of the year again where we do K&E's best books of the year. Kay, you want to start?
Yes, let's start. So this is a young adult trilogy. Actually, it's called The Inheritance Games. Usually, I'm not a huge fan of young adult because I am quite an old adult, but
Young at heart.
Young at heart, yes. But these I really enjoyed. It's about this orphan who is really kind of almost destitute, and she comes into this huge fortune, and it's like the Hawthorne fortune. And the old man who died, he kind of has a thing for puzzles and riddles and cipher, and so it's kind of like mystery and turbulence, and there are a lot of cute people, and there's a lot of twists and turns. I like books with cute people, and so this was a lot of fun, really quick read. So I would recommend everyone read this.
So my first recommendation is The Maid by Stephanie Land. This is a memoir about a single mother who is struggling financially and how she works as a maid and goes to school at the same time and takes care of her young daughter as she tries to bring them up in the world. So it's just a really poignant, touching book, and I quite enjoyed it.
They made a Netflix series.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I really enjoyed the
I
series.
watched
I'm
the
gonna read
series
this.
first and then I read the book.
Does that work the other way?
It worked. Yeah.
It worked. Okay,
Yeah.
nice. All right. My next one is Do Not Judge Me. It's Sarah J. Maas. I know it's like fantasy smut, whatever, A Court of Silver Flames, okay? And I can't help it. I really enjoy high fae erotica. This is not young
Maybe
adult.
a new genre.
Yes, exactly. And this is about, the human sisters who turn high fae, which is kind of like a fairyland. And it's just a lot of kind of action and a lot of very strong-willed women who are problematic and who are self-destructive and who are polarizing, but they're just a lot of fun to read. And if you can keep an open mind, which I did, this is just a lot of fun. And this is about Nesta and Cassian, and they're both really good looking, and so it's a lot of fun to read.
So another book that I really enjoyed reading this year was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is by the author of The Martian. And Andy Weir writes science fiction, but he has a really quirky, humorous way of writing it. So you get a lot of space knowledge, but it's told in really, it's given to you in really accessible language, and it's just really funny, and he always writes his characters really well. So you're always able to form some sort of connection with the characters in his book, and this book actually has a really endearing sort of mystery character.
I know.
That shows up a little
so
later.
Cute. Yeah. You will fall in love with that character.
Yeah, so
it's
this is really
sweet.
accessible science fiction and
Yeah.
good fun.
Absolutely. Okay. Again, Colleen Hoover, not something very profound. She has written a book on domestic violence, and obviously the subject is extremely heavy and it's hard to read. But the way she has approached it is in such an accessible, practical, realistic way without separating the issue from the character. So it's almost like you're just going through a journey with this girl Lily and her boyfriend Ryle. And usually these kind of characters really irritate me, but for some reason Lily didn't, and Ryle, even though he was so toxic and so problematic, like it's almost like, I can not understand and justify, but I know someone like that, and I know why this person is doing this because of whatever, some cultural constructs and, problems with the way men are raised and, society and patriarchy in general. But I really enjoyed this. We did this for book club. It lent itself to a really, really interesting,
it did, right?
colorful discussion.
That was a
So
great
it
discussion.
ends with us, and Colleen Hoover is just always so easy to read.
So I have another science fiction choice for this year. It's How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. And this is about an Earth taken over by a pandemic. But unlike COVID, which is tapered off, this pandemic and the repercussions of it just last through centuries. And it's just really interesting how the author has shown the course of humanity as it is shaped and affected by this pandemic, and how people adapt to it and the lengths they will go to save themselves or their loved ones. So it's a different read, but it's quite interesting.
But is it like dystopian type of a thing?
It's I wouldn't call it dystopian. Eventually it sort of gets there, but not really.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. I'm
Yeah.
going to read that. Okay, my next read I've spoken about at length. It's an underrated book. It is this atmospheric, gothic, extremely immersive read with beautiful feminist characters in two different timelines. And you see how the two stories and the kind of fates of the two women converge and how they're intertwined. The Silk House by Kate Nunn. I have always recommended this book. I don't know why more people don't talk about this book. It's a beautiful read. I mean, it's a lot like, it's got herbology and it's got witchcraft and it's got these very kind of stubborn, yet very willful women, which I always love. So read this.
So I did quite a bit of rereading this year, and one of the books that I really enjoyed rereading was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And I also did a TikTok review in which I gave a rather unpopular opinion that the quote hero Heathcliff, I don't really care for him, I don't like him, and nor did I like Catherine, the original. But I find Wuthering Heights is always a good reread, as is Jane Eyre.
Absolutely.
And I really enjoyed it. And every time you read it, you take away something different or you notice something different. And that's what I really like about rereading the classics.
Yeah. So my question is, when growing up, like, why did we find Heathcliff so attractive? And now when we read this, we're like, oh my God, he's like a problematic jerk.
I think because when we were young, we were like, he's so passionate, he's so in love with her, he'll do anything for her. Because we were naive.
It's kind of creepy.
And now that we know better, we're like, that is toxic.
Yeah, thank you.
So much wrong with
But it's still a beautiful book and it really draws you in.
Yeah.
So that's why it's classic. Okay. My last two books actually that I read, they are non-fiction, and both are, one is set, with the backdrop of the Iranian revolution, and one is with the backdrop of the India-Pakistan partition. And what I noticed about both of these books, I mean, I really love both of them. One is The Upstairs Wife by Rafia Zakaria, and one is Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azhar Nafisi, okay? So both of these books, the commonality in both of these books and the commonality kind of in our culture and in history is, first of all, whenever there's any sort of political upheaval or cultural revolution, the kind of reign of calamity always seems to fall on the women. The women are asked to diminish themselves. Their autonomy and their personal freedoms are taken away. They have to change their way of dressing, their way of existing. And I mean, it's so crazy.
They're the ones that have to adapt.
Absolutely. And even though the decision makers and the policy makers are men, someone else is making life-altering decisions for you.
Yeah.
So in both of these books, you see, during the Iranian Revolution, where all of a sudden women, from being really modern and really liberal, all of a sudden now they have to take the veil, they have to look down, they can't wear nail polish, they can't wear earrings, they have to completely restrict themselves. And then during partition, right, it's a story of, Rafia Zakaria's family during partition, and specifically about her aunt who finds herself in a position where her husband's married again, because of, obviously in religion you're allowed, and how this decision which someone else took, how it affects her entire life. And all of a sudden, even though she's the victim and she's the one who is at the receiving end of this decision, she has to hide herself. She has to make herself smaller.
Yeah,
she has to hide away, and her family is embarrassed. And the guy who did it, he's fine. He's meeting everyone. He's going out there. No one's asking him anything. He's not feeling the guilt and the shame, even though he's the one who perpetrated that decision. So I feel any change that's restrictive rather than expansive for anyone, whether it's women or any sort of a marginalized community, how can that be a good change is my question. So both of these are very, very thought-provoking reads. So I would actually, if you guys have the time, again, I'm reading this one as we speak, reading Lolita in Tehran. December is not a good time to read it because it will distract it, but I would really strongly recommend both of these.
So my next book is by Peggy Orenstein. It's a nonfiction book. It's Boys and Sex. I also did a review for this on our Insta page. So this is just a very telling and insightful book into the mindset of young boys and young men, teenage boys going into college. And she interviewed college age and high school boys in America, and I had mentioned that while this centers around American bro culture, I really think that the dynamics and the mindsets follow the same patterns that they do here in Pakistan.
True, for
You
sure.
know?
Yeah.
And she also talks about how the toxic effect of this sort of bro culture and stereotypical masculinity, it affects not only the people around men and young boys, but it also affects the mental health of young men, which
Yeah.
is a largely overlooked
Yeah.
aspect.
Absolutely.
So I would definitely recommend this book for sure.
And also, like, speaking of mental health, like when you talk about patriarchy, I think men are as much victims as the women
Yeah.
are, having to always put up that bravado and the inability to be able to be vulnerable. I mean, how
Yeah.
tough is that for men to not be able to express themselves?
Actually, she says that, she mentions that specifically in the book, that this lack of vulnerability in young men and boys is so harmful for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to read that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about 2 books that we are going to be reading, hopefully
Yes.
by the end of the year, so that we hit our Goodreads reading challenge, which I'm not even close to. But so my first book is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. He's the one who who wrote All the Light We Cannot See, which I love. A lot of people don't like it. I love that book. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. If any of you have read it, please leave some reviews.
I like anthropology and things about, early man. So I found this book about the Neanderthals. It's not the first book on Neanderthals that I have, nor that I have read. I first got interested in them when I read that series, Clan of the Cave
Yes,
Bear by Gina
yes,
Mo, which
yes.
is a wonderfully researched historical fiction. But a lot of it was based on her research and historical facts. So this is Kindred, Neanderthal, Love, Life, Death, and Art.
I will not be reading that, but
And it's non-fiction.
finally a book that I will not be reading. My next book on my TBR is Matthew Perry's new book. I think it's called Love, Friendship, and something. I forgot.
also wanna read
It's
that,
a memoir, and I love Friends, and I love Chandler, and it's about his journey through Friends and through his struggles with substance abuse, and I think it's going to be very interesting. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
And the book I'm really looking forward to reading, I actually started reading it, but then it got checked out, and that is Becoming Supernatural. That's also, it's sort of self-help,
Yeah.
inner work type book, but
Yeah.
it's got a lot of good reviews.
really
it's very
got good
well known.
reviews.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'd like to read that whenever it is returned.
Okay, so that wraps up our best reads of 2022. Hope you guys enjoy seeing this as much as we enjoyed making it. And if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions for us for 2023, please leave them in the comment section. Bye. You're so weird.